Hi, I'm Michael from Spaceflower, and if you're hearing this, you made the decision to embark on the adventure, the glorious adventure of doing game development. And if you ask me, that's the best decision you can make because making games, yeah, it's a pretty cool thing. So let's have a look at how to get into it and then how to do it. So, the very first big question you have to ask yourself is what is it exactly that you want to do in game development? Because game development is quite a wide range of thing. It's not that you go, okay, I sit down and now I make a game, pretty much the same ways as you would say, okay, I'm going to sit down and building me a Lego set or something like that. Because making a game, making a full feature game, especially if down the road you want to commercially market your game and sell it to people to then play, enjoy, and spread the word and everything, there's a lot more that comes to making a game than just sitting there clicking a few buttons and in the end you have a game. What do you have to do? There's assets that have to be created. These assets can be 3D models or 2D textures or artwork, sound, and stuff like that. That has to be created, and that's a whole field of themselves. That's the people who make the assets. And as I just mentioned, even that branches off to visual assets, audio assets, and all this stuff. And then you have all the people that have designer in their name, like game designers, level designers, design designers, and all that. You have to have the people that have the right ideas, or maybe you have a story in your game. You even need, well, that's not a story designer, it's actually a story writer, but you get the point. You need to have someone who's making all those stories. And then you also have to have the people who actually make it work, who do all the coding and the programming to then make all the assets and the ideas from all the other people, combine that into something that in the end, if you're lucky, works. So there's a lot of different things that can be done when you say you're a game developer. Just saying you're a game developer doesn't really mean that much because, as I just said, what is it that you're doing? What is your part that you're contributing to actually making that game? This can be all of these, and that what the things I just mentioned were just examples. That's by no means an exhaustive or complete list. Those were just a few examples of the things you might need and one of your expertise that you could do. So even people who think, yeah, I will never make it into game design because I can't do the things you need, well, I wouldn't be so sure. There's a pretty good chance that whatever skill you have to offer will be needed for some game by some people to actually make the game a reality because all these people, all these skills have to be put into one bucket, shaken, not stirred, put a bit of ice on top, and then you get a finished game. So that's the first thing you have to ask yourself. What is it that I will be contributing? What's my skill? Is it the asset creation? Is it the having the ideas, the design stuff, or maybe even the programming part? And once you've that nailed down, once you know what it is that you can contribute to making a game, then you can actually head into making the game. And to make games, well, you first have to get into the game industries. And there's, depending on where you are in your path of life and your career way, there's a few options you have to get into game development. So let's start by taking a look at those. So you send your mind up to the goal of starting into a career in game development. First of all, congratulations. If you ask me, my personal opinion is that is one of the best decisions you can make for yourselves. So, but how do you get in? How do you get started in a career? There's depending on where you are in your path of life, in your career path, there's two different routes you have to go because you're either coming fresh out of school or university. That is the one branch, or you're maybe already working, you're already in the work life and you do your 9 to 5 job 7 days a week or whatever, but you're not doing it in the games industry. And maybe you even work with a skill one of the skills I mentioned before, that you want to bring into game development. So maybe you are already a 3D modeler, but you're not doing it in the games industry. You're doing it in the furniture, car, or whatever industry. Maybe you're even in a movie studio. Who knows? Now, that's not too far away from game development. Well, some people say it is, but, well, it stands to reason. Or maybe you're a programmer and you're already hacking your code in and you're super duper good at this, but you're not using your skill of coding to make games. Maybe you're making enterprise applications, web pages, small Windows Pro, whatever. I don't know. Maybe you're on the Microsoft Office team. What gives? So you want to change your career. You want to hit the game development road at a 90-degree angle and then join in. And that is perfectly fine. This will work. You can do this. There's just a few things you have to, well, maybe consider, be aware of. But that's exactly why we're sitting here together today, to take a look at how to actually do that. So if you're, to pick up on the first one, if you're coming fresh from school or maybe even university, but it's a bit different with university, because usually when you're coming from university, you're looking for an apprenticeship. When you're coming fresh from university, you just start applying to a job, and that might actually work. You might have a computer science degree and have done something on the computer, and now you want to apply to game development studios and tell them, hey guys, I'm super duper at this skill, please hire me. That can work. But for you, maybe you should also the thing. Maybe you're more on the page that I will cover in a few minutes when talking about if you're a career changer and you're hitting the game development road on that 90-degree angle, because there's a few things with which you can make your life a bit more easy, or give the studios more an incentive to actually hire you down the road. So, but coming on first one, if you're coming fresh out of school, you're usually looking for an apprenticeship. Unfortunately, there's being a game developer is not a recognized job description like bus driver, machinist, or the guy who repairs your car. What's his name? Well, you know what I mean. Teacher of dancing instructor. Yes, being a teacher of dancing is a recognized job description, and being game developer is not. I know, right? That's the world we live in. It's hard to believe, but that's the way it is. Don't ask me how I know this. Well, so what you have to do is, if you're looking for offerings for training or apprenticeships or whatever, don't look for jobs labeled game developer, because you will be deeply disappointed when finding none, because that job description doesn't exist in that way. So look for jobs that actually describe this skill you're doing, like media design. I'm not sure what all counts into media design, if even 3D modeling goes into media design. But if whatever you're doing, if you wouldn't do that in the games industry, if you would do that in some other industry, and the job you were doing would be in media design, then look for media design. Or if you're a programmer, there is this nice job description, IT specialist in application development, which is basically the fancy official name of being a programmer. So you can look for those. Look for IT specialist in application development. Things that sound simple. Well, you get the point. Look for job descriptions that are actually labeled for this skill, for the job that you would do, completely unrelated to any industry you want to do it in, because then you're looking for that kind of job offerings or apprentice offerings from game studios. So if you see, like, there's the application development guy, and that's, I don't know, SAP, then yeah, you know that's not what you want. Go away. But if it's some cool gaming studio, and it doesn't even have to be a big one, you don't have to know about it already. But that's another thing. But that's more like general application stuff. Not sure if we need to cover that here. So yeah, look for your job, but that is offered by a gaming studio, and then you can basically start your apprenticeship, and 3 years later you are whatever you are, but you are already at a game studio. So you are quite likely to have your skill already applied in making games and will continue to do so in the future, which is wonderful. But that being said, there's a catch. There's an asterisk in what I just said, because there's, at least to my knowledge, please correct me if anybody knows better, this is one of the situations why I love to be wrong, but there is not that many game development studios actually offering trainee positions or apprenticeships or stuff like that. They are quite uncommon in the games industry, at least in Germany. Don't ask me why, I have no idea. We, for our studio, definitely have the plan that eventually in the future we'll be able to support a trainee or an apprenticeship. We're just not there yet. We're just still too small, and well, that's a story for a different day. So maybe what you have to do is you have to take a detour and make your apprenticeship at a company in a different industry. Maybe like as when you're a programmer, maybe you actually do it in one of those enterprise system houses or a web agency or whatever. So you actually get your certified skill that yes, you are an official programmer now. And once you have that, you then go to the game development studios and put in your application and say, hey, guys, hire me. And from now on, everything I will be now talking about when you're one of those career changes, from now on, everything what I'm saying now also counts for you. Because here comes a quite important thing, and it's quite interesting, and I don't understand how many people can miss this. Build yourself a portfolio. It doesn't have to be big. It doesn't have to be bazillions of these things or hundreds of projects there. But what you have to do is, ideally, in your off time, on a hobby basis, as something you ideally like to do, get your feet wet and get your hands on actually working on game projects. They don't have to be finished. They don't have to be super duper amazing. You just need to be able to show experience and especially interest, because that is the thing. If you apply somewhere and you say, hey guys, I've never worked professionally full time in this, but I've already put in my own time in learning these things and getting my hands on it, and here is what I did, here's all the cool things I did, and it's no matter how not super duper they are, you did them all on your own, and that is super cool. That is amazing. They will see that, okay, first thing, has already experience. Second thing, has a lot of motivation and interest in doing it. And all that combines to has a lot of interest and motivation to keep learning and getting better and doing more. And if we hire them in a junior position, maybe eventually end up in a senior pro or even the lead position or whatever. So that is very important. And that counts for all of you guys out there. That counts for you guys coming fresh out of school, for the ones coming fresh out of university, for you 90-degree or career changers. That counts for us all. Get your hands on it, get your feet wet, make some small projects, build up a portfolio, and always send that with your application. There's so many people who miss this. I don't understand how you can, even people who do have stuff to show, they don't put it in their CV. They don't add it to the application. Don't do to not do it. So basically do it. If you have something to show, and it's completely, it doesn't matter how insignificant it might look or feel to you. If it's something that shows that you've done something or that you're capable of doing something, put it into your application, put it into your CV, send it out, let the people know that you're super interested and that you maybe already can do stuff. And that also perfectly segues into our next topic, because now we're starting to slide into the how to get from the how to get into making games to the actually how to make games. Because one of the things that you should do when you're in your off time as a hobby, you're getting your hands on stuff and start doing stuff, is you should work with at least one of the common game engines. And this perfectly ties into what's a game engine, why is a game engine, and more importantly, how is a game engine? All right, before looking at what's all needed to make a full game from start from empty project idea to finished product, let's talk a bit about game engines. What's a game engine? Why is a game engine? And how is a game engine? So a game engine is basically a huge set of tools combined with an editor that we can use to make our games. So we can focus on our actual game implementation, our game mechanics, and we don't have to reinvent all the wheels. One of those wheels would maybe be to have your 3D models and get them as shiny pixels on the screen in the right order, in the right color. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to make your model of a 3D chess set into a bitmap image that's being shown on your screen. Or audio stuff, you have sounds or music that needs to play. There's also quite some work involved in getting your MP3 or WAV files or OGG, whatever you have as input, to have them blasting out of the speakers and actually make everybody dance to it. There's some more work done to accomplish that. And all that work is already being done in an engine. So that's all the wheels other people have invented, all the work other people have already spent doing it, and all we need to do it is to use it. So if we want to have 3D models rendered, we just tell the engine, look, here's my 3D model, go. And we have it on our screen. Or we have a sound file and we say, yeah, you know what, this is my background music. Play this on loop, please. And then we have our background music constantly in the background. And we don't really have to take care about how these things are done. And more importantly, we don't have to put in the work to do these implementations all by ourselves, because that's what the engine does. And it goes far beyond that. Engines have so much more things that we can use, functionality that it's commonly used, like pathfinding, procedurally generating levels, stuff like that. You don't have to write any of your own implementations for that. You just go to the engine and tell the engine, hey, I know you can do it. Here's what I want you to do it. And you can just focus on your own implementations, on your game mechanics, the things that make your game, and not just a collection of other tools or stuff. Yeah, so that's basically what an engine is. It's a huge tool set of tools that we can use that make our lives easier, because all the things that always commonly need to be done already have been done, and we can focus on our stuff. So how do we actually do that? It's not that hard. First of all, your assets. If you have assets that you create, like your 3D assets, your sound files, or whatever else there is that you will be using in your game, those are usually created completely outside of the engine. So there's special tools for creating your assets. There's Blender for 3D. There is Photoshop and Affinity and whatnot for making textures or 2D art. And then there is sound editing tools. So every category of asset, of thing that needs to be done, has their own tool sets to actually create those assets, and they are completely independent of the engine. So ideally, your artists, your modeling on artwork, on sound artists and whatever, they don't have to really care about what engine you're using, because they are creating their assets, and you're then just importing these assets into the engine, which usually is as easy as drag and drop. You have the editor of the engine. This is another thing. And then you have your Windows Explorer or whatever folder, and you just drag your assets in, and they are there ready to be used in the engine, in the editor. Because that's another thing engines offer us. They come with an editor that you can use for various things. You can, of course, edit your levels in the editor, so inside the engine's editor. you have your level set up, and you place all the things you want to have in your level in there, and you connect all the separate things with your code, like, I have this model there and I need this code to run so it moves properly and stuff like that. That's things you do in the engine editor. So basically all your little pieces, all your little pieces of assets and code, you assemble them and put them together like a huge puzzle to finally, in the end, get your game that's running. And the last thing is your code, of course, which is also usually not done in the engine itself. You usually trigger, if you say, I need to write a new code component here, you usually trigger this via the engine. You tell the engine, hey, I want a new piece of code, and the engine places your file there and generates usually a template. So you have a starting point, and then it opens up your code editor, which by default most of the time is Visual Studio, but you also might be using JetBrains Rider, which I, by the way, hashtag no ad, not sponsored, not affiliated, not everything, but I can highly add if you're a programmer working with Unreal or Unity in C++ or C#, I can just highly recommend taking a look at JetBrains Rider. It makes your life so much more convenient and so much more easy. And I also name dropped 2 engine names there, which might lead us to the next question that you guys probably have burning under your nails already. Which is the best engine? Which engine should I use? And the answer to that is more easy than you might think, but we'll be covering that in a bit. First, let's talk like a minute or two more about the hows and the whats. And then we'll be covering which engine is definitely the best and the one engine you should be using. But yeah, where were we? We were with you assembling everything, your code and your assets, and in the editor putting it all together and connecting it, like having this code run there and setting up your level. So this is basically what an engine is and how we use an engine. Yeah, a lot of the code that makes your game you have to write yourself, which also each engine uses a different programming language because we have so many of programming languages, so they couldn't decide on one. Which already segues a bit into which engine should we use. Let's just do that. Which is the engine you should use for yourself? Spoiler alert, it depends. It depends. It depends mostly on 2 things. One thing is your use case. What is it actually that you want to do? Do you want to make a game for PC, or do you maybe want to make something for a mobile phone? Because there's engine that handle the one use case a bit better, and there's engines that you handle the other use case a bit better. So that might be a deciding factor on which engine you use. And the second thing is, and I think it's even more important than the first one, because a lot of it, at least when you're on your own, when you say, like I mentioned in the beginning, before you want to apply somewhere and you want just for yourself as a hobby to get your feet wet, you want to start doing something, and you need to decide for yourself which engine you should use. It boils down a lot to personal preference. Yeah, as simple as that. Especially when it comes down to the programming language. I think for a lot of people, at least when you're in the programming department, it comes down a lot to the programming language, because I don't know, maybe you say, oh, C#, C++, maybe it's definitely not my thing. So then that would rule out Unreal Engine. Or if you say, I like all of those programming languages, I'm totally fine with all of them, but I like C# a bit more than all of the others, then that might be worth a look maybe at Unity. I don't know, actually, maybe some of you know. If you do, let us know. I'm not sure which programming language Godot, for example, uses. But yeah, that would be another deciding factor on which engine you should use. And then maybe watch a video or 2 about each engine, how it's used, how you work with it, because every engine has its own quirks and its own specialities and is used a little bit different than the other one. So maybe there's one that fits your personal workflow, the way you like to work fits a bit better than the others. So yeah, that's the engine you should use, basically. So that's it about engines. Did we miss anything about engines? If we've missed anything, just let us know and maybe we'll pick it up. So the next thing, now that we know what we have available to make games and how to use our engine, the next thing we want to take a look at maybe is what it all takes to actually make a full game, from the empty idea up to a working game that we can copy to friends or maybe even sell on Steam, because there's a lot of more to it than just downloading the engine, clicking a bit around, writing some code. Well, you could do it that way for a very, very small project, but if once you come to a certain degree of project size, or maybe even you want to apply for a government grant or something, there's a bit more to it than just doing it. And what all of that is, coming up next. What actually goes into making a full game, a really, really big project? If you do like a hobby project or something, you usually just download the engine of your choice, fire it up, start running your assets in, start writing your code, and eventually you end up with something you're happy with. Eventually, and especially if you slowly move into the more professional world, you end up having projects that are a bit bigger. Or maybe they're not even so big, but they are still done in a professional way. And that means a lot of the things that back in university we all love to do so much, which is the theory of planning things. If you've learned programming in a professional way on university or in school, you know you have to make these flowcharts first. Before you write your first line of code, you have to make these lovely flowcharts where you actually lay out the logic that you then later formulate in your code. And it's pretty much the same when making games. You have to have a plan. So at the very beginning, at the point of Big Bang, there's the idea. You have a brilliant idea, you have a super duper idea that you think, yeah, this will be an amazing game. I will make this game and everyone will love it. The first thing you then need to do is to write up a concept. And all these things that we're now going to cover, they will sound very, very tedious. And trust me, they are. But you will need them, especially when maybe you get out of the hobbyist phase, and maybe you even found your own little gaming studio, and maybe you want to apply for a government grant, because there's such things. The government, at least in Germany, now supports people making games because they want Germany to be well, a thing that makes games. And so there's these grants, and you have to I mean, this is German bureaucratics. You have to send in a lot of paper to be considered for that grant. So one of those papers would be the concept, and the concept will also be very, very useful to yourself, because there is a term, keeping the vision. Especially when you're sitting there and you're programming away, or however you make it. Maybe you're not a programmer, but maybe you assemble your game in some other way. You're making your game. You might, and this is not even this. I don't mean this in a bad way. It just happens. You might lose the vision of your original idea, because you have this idea. Now you're actually implementing all your things. You might think, I know we can here do this and do that, and I'll go there, and you completely stray off your original plan, which sometimes is a good thing. Sometimes this ends up in something even more amazing, but usually this might end in a dead end, and everything explodes and nothing works in the end. It's not a fun game that if you get anything at all. So write up your concept, and the concept entails pretty much everything. It's a very abstract description of how the game works. Like, this is the setting, and these are the mechanics. Describe all your mechanics. How does the level work? How do you progress in the level? What is the mechanic you play inside the level? How does the loading and saving work? All these things, everything of the ideas, all the ideas that make up your game, put them in a concise and cohesive document, and that is your concept. Your concept describes your game, so that if you give your concept to any person, even the person is not technical and doesn't even have to do anything to do with game development or such, give the person this document. After they read it, they know what your game is about, they know how the game works, and they know how to play your game. So that's the idea of the concept. And once you've that covered, you might want to write up a second document. Sometimes this is not needed. Sometimes this is not necessary. But if you plan to apply for any kind of government grant, this is required, because they want this one have sent in. So it's definitely a good idea to spend some thought there. And it's also called game design document. Excuse me. It's also called game design document, but the game design document, in contrast to the concept, is more technical. In the game design document, you already describe how things will be implemented technically. Not super technical, not like I'm going to write this line and of code or stuff like that. It's still a bit abstracted, but like we will implement the algorithm ABC to implement this mechanic and really explain how the mechanics work. The concept describes everything that a potential player would need. So it's kind of an extended documentation, maybe, if you want to call it. And as a normal gamer, if you just want to play a game, you usually don't need to know how the algorithms under the hood work. Like if you have a trade simulation or an economy simulation, you don't really have to know how the algorithms work that figure out the trade routes and stuff. If you're a hardcore pro player, you will figure them out, so you can get the most result out of the game, and maybe even exploit the mechanics or stuff like that. But usually you don't know how the algorithms under the hood actually work, and the game design document describes those algorithms. The concept is not. The concept just tells you, well, yeah, there's an economy system that works, period. And the game design document tells you, we have an economy system that works like this, and then there's an actual explanation of how it all works and how it's going to be implemented. So the game design document is two things. It's longer than it contains more information than the concept, because of thing number two, it's way more technical. It does not only describe what is there, but also how these things are implemented. And yes, that sounds like a lot of work, and you haven't even started working on your game yet. And it is, and sometimes it can be boring. Actually, to be quite frankly, most of the times it's quite boring to write these documents. But believe me, down the road, if you have a larger project, this will help you. Again, don't think at your Hello World, or I'm just doing a little game jam project that I'm completing in 2 or 3 days. It will be way too much overhead for that. But think of a project where you say, okay, I really have a game idea. I really want to do this game. And it will take about 1, maybe 2 years to actually have this game finished. So the scope is a bit more bigger of the game. Then you will definitely value having those documents. And as already said, especially if down the road you maybe want to apply for a grant or something. So once you have the game design document, you are basically set up to start working on your game, to download the engine of your choice if you haven't already, fire the editor up, and start implementing your first things. So that is what you do then. I would again suggest doing some project management. Yes, I know I'm using a lot of words that nobody wants to hear, but it really can't hurt. And I even adopted this for my side projects, my personal projects I do in my free time. I do some sort of very small project management even for that, which means you again have to have a plan. So you don't just sit there, have your game design document, and then you code away. You need to your game design document. You need to cut it into tiny little pieces. And these issues, these tasks, you then well. I don't want to go too much into project management, and I don't want to scare you off with project management terms, but basically go on Trello, go and get yourself a free Trello or whatever, and you have this very nice board with my planned tasks in progress, done, and I don't know, testing needed, feedback needed, whatever the states are. And you put up the tasks and then you sort them in a way like, okay, I need to do this first because this depends on that. So this needs to come after this. But this, I think, is a bit more important. I want to have this first. This comes even more on top. So you have a plan. You cut your GDD, all your technical things, you cut them down into little tasks and you put them in your Trello board or whatever you like to use. If you want to go all in and you really want to feel like the big boys, go and use Jira or stuff like that. Codex is also a nice thing, especially for Gamedev, because Codex is such an issue and ticket system made from game developers for game developers. So that is also, maybe go on Codex and check that out, because that also puts in some gamification into the whole issue and task making thing. So it's not that dry and tedious. So yeah, again, make your plan, and then you can finally start coding and working on your game, and you will see it's way more easy and way more convenient when you have a plan, because you're not sitting there, okay, what do I need? Oh, I need this. But no, before I can finish this, you have a plan, and you just, in an ideal world, if everything works perfectly, you just pick your tasks from top to bottom and you just finish them in that order. I have to do this. Okay, I'm implementing this. Oh, I need to implement this. Okay, then I'm implementing that. And in the end, your game becomes more and more complete, and eventually you will have something that's testable and that you can play. And the adventure is way not over yet, because now comes the play testing. And we're not even QA. We are not even talking QA yet. For those of you who have no idea what QA means, we'll be covering that in a bit. But now you have to do playtesting. Playtesting is not aimed at finding bugs, at least not technical bugs, like, oh, look, when it crashes when I click here, or when I tell this unit to do this, it does that. Playtesting is not meant to find technical bugs like that. Playtesting is meant to find bugs in your ideas or in the implementation. Because on paper, a lot of things sound really cool. Like, I have this super idea for this mechanic in the game, sounds really nice. Then you implement it, but when you then let people play it, you see, or maybe even when you play it yourself, you see it's not fun at all. It's absolutely not fun. The contrary, it's more like a disturbing something than a nice game mechanic that is enjoyable. And this is what playtesting is for. Playtesting means playing the game yourself, and especially, more importantly, having other people who have never played your game play your game. Don't tell them anything about your game. Just tell them, I have a game here. I want you to play it. And then you watch it. Your task is to watch them play it, and your task is to see their reactions to playing your game. Because then you can see if they are frustrated, or if they're having fun, if they're enjoying their time, or if they're thinking, oh God, I hope this is over soon. And based on that, based on those observations, you know which of your mechanics, and again, not talking in a technical implementation coding sense, but more in the idea sense, which of your mechanics, which of your ideas just don't work as nice as you thought. And then you need to reiterate on them. You need to change them. You need to see, okay, what's going wrong with this mechanic? How can I make this mechanic be more fun? Or maybe throw it out altogether. Or maybe in a more grand scope, the people weren't enjoying the game as much as you hoped. So what can I add? Do I have to add more mechanics? And that's what playtesting is. So playtesting is testing your ideas that you have implemented, and then you have the QA, and that's the technical bug finding. Then you have the QA, quality assurance or quality assessment, means that you find the technical bugs so the game doesn't crash. So that when you click something in the game, it actually does what it's supposed to do and not something else. So you have two kinds of testing. You have testing your ideas, the mechanics on an idea level. Are they fun? Are they nice to play? And then you have the technical testing. Are there any bugs? Does it crash? Does it behave correctly? Or does a unit that is supposed to do this thing just do that thing and never does this thing, even though it's totally supposed to do that thing? That will be a technical bug. So you have these two kinds of testing: idea testing, technical testing, and the one thing is the play testing, and the other thing is the QA. And once you've done that, usually you then just loop back to coding, to building, to fix all the issues you have, all the problems you have, be it the idea-wise ideas or things, or be it the technical bugs. And then you start over again. Then you do another round of play testing and QA. And eventually you will end up at a point where you say, okay, everything who played my game was happy. They were enjoying it. I am happy. I am enjoying it. And at least I don't know about any more bugs that in the game. And this is the moment we've all been waiting for. Because then you have a finished game. And then you can pack it up, upload it to Steam, upload it to itch.io, or send it in a mail to your friend. And then you can start giving out your game and go from there. So that's in a rough overview the whole road of what it needs to create a game, from a blank sheet of paper and an idea to what's commonly called the Gold Master, which is the final version that has gone through, hundreds, thousands, bazillions iterations of testing phases and fixing and testing again, and eventually it's done. Yeah. So that's done. What else? A few final words. Congratulations, you made it. You're through. You made it to the end of this long talk. And yeah, congratulations. Here we are. So I hope this gave you a rough overview of what it means to start into game development, of what you can do to start into game development, of how to start, and yeah, especially on how to approach your own projects and your own hobby projects, or maybe it even helps you if you do eventually get a job in game development. Fingers crossed for that. I hope you will, or maybe you even are. So congratulations to that then. And yeah, maybe we even meet. Should we? I don't know, meet at Gamescom or something. I definitely be open to be invited to a drink, because I like to be invited for drinks. Who doesn't? So a few fine words. Let me stress the one thing again that I said at the very beginning, that you need a portfolio. And this is mainly why I talked so much about creating your own game, your own project that you work on, and not being a small part of a huge project at a studio or company or something. Because if you want to get into game development, you need your portfolio. You need to. I talked about this in the beginning, so I won't be spreading out that too much again. But yeah, just a reminder at that. Get your feet wet, work yourself, create yourself a portfolio so you have something to show off, so you can show them here. I'm able to learn, I already can do this, and I'm super willing and I'm super interested in learning even more. Speaking of learning, when we were talking about engines, we were talking about that the engines take all the work away from us. The engines take care about rendering the stuff and making the sound and all of that. If you have the time and the nerves, I would super recommend getting into actually knowing how these things work under the hood. Ideally, you would do this actually yourself. You would take yourself an empty text file and start from scratch, and I don't know, with C or any other language. I think C Sharp can do it as well. Start torturing those graphic APIs yourself by hand. Be it DirectX or OpenGL, doesn't matter. But see that you get some simple 3D objects on the screen rendered by yourself, by your own code, and make them a bit rotate or move. That's it. It doesn't need to be more. Just for you to understand how these things actually work under the hood. If you say, no, this is something that's totally no fun, I don't want to do this, which I could absolutely understand, at least watch on YouTube or such, watch some videos, maybe even tutorials that explain that, without doing it yourself, but try to understand how these things work under the hood, how a vertex array, a list of floating numbers, is made into a bitmap picture on your monitor. Because if you understand these things, it makes you understanding problems you might having later on when working with an engine way more easy, because maybe you run into some kind of issue. And if you understand how these things work under the hood, you have a better understanding, and it makes it more easy to understand what the actual problem is, and then even maybe finding a solution. So I would highly recommend, even if the engine take the work from us and does it for us, dip your nose into that work and at least try to understand how things work. You don't necessarily have to do them yourself, but well, that can be even more fun, but at least try to understand. So that will definitely make your life a lot more easy down the road. Sounds a bit tedious, sounds a bit like work. Yes, it is, but it can be super fun. Maybe you enjoy even working so low level. I at least do. I kind of like doing these things. So yeah, maybe find a new passion, and the worst thing is you at least know what's happening and why some things don't work, or why the performance sucks and stuff like that. Then the next thing I would recommend to you is sharing your experiences. Sharing your experiences on, I don't know, forums, Discord, maybe do Twitch streams while you're developing. That's a super cool thing, by the way. Share your experiences and look at the experience of others that they share, which goes directly into networking, which is another thing you definitely should do. Go out there, see and be seen, network, make new friends, because, well, you have even more people to share your experience or learn from their experience. The game development industry usually is very friendly, and most people don't see the other people as I don't know, an enemy or something. We're on the same boat, and we like to share and help each other. So do that. Go out there, help others, be helped by others. That's definitely a cool thing. And also just trying out new stuff every now and then. Like, I don't know, you've worked with Engine 8 for basically all the time. Just try out Engine B. Just try it out. The worst thing is you actually then know you don't like it, but then you at least know you have tried it, and then you can try Engine C. And I don't know, maybe you really see that the engine you're using is the best for you, or maybe you find something else. At least you broaden your horizon. And a very, very good opportunity for doing that kind of stuff is game jams. Yeah, taking part of game jams. I mean, you wouldn't be here if you wouldn't do game jams, right? Do game jams. There's so many happening all the time, and game jams are a good chance to either use the skills you already know and deepen them, or try something new. Try something new. Go into a game jam not with the idea of actually having a finished game, but just having tried something completely new. Try an engine you have no idea about, in a programming language you've never used, with a game idea you've never thought about. Go wild. And trust me, that is the one final thing that I will now say to you, and that is have fun. That's the most important thing. Have fun. And with that, my friends, to making awesome games. Hope to see you.